Hello, and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. On today's show, I'm going to take you on a different type of journey today that explores the intricacies of sexual health, the practice of sharing our most intimate information or medical information or our sexual health information with potential partners. I want to talk about something that I was made aware of a few weeks ago. It's a very controversial phenomenon known as bug chasing, and the challenging dynamics of differing opinions within our communities regarding sexual health, sexual disclosure, and the often overlooked mental health implications that accompany these topics. Now, a lot of my work revolves around unraveling the mysteries of the human mind, complex emotions, understanding the motives behind our actions, and helping people navigate these complex cognitive behaviors that they're dealing with, especially in their deeper desires or their emotions, or whether they're dealing with a breakup or the loss of a loved one, or if it's something more complex. But this conversation today kind of goes beyond the surface. This is about peeling back the layer of understanding, and it's about risk assessment. It's about our personal health. It's about health of the community or the general public, and fostering a greater awareness of ourselves and those around us. So I'm going to try to approach this from a broad scope, just looking in, while I do have some personal opinions about this. Because this has been going on enough that the topic has been surfing and people are starting to bring things up, I want to dispel some myths or talk about some things today that I find, especially in the rise of the COVID era, where, we're all worried about masking up, and we are all of that, get your boosters and your shots, and I'm protected by COVID and all of these things in the dating world. And I'm not here to talk about that today. But we need to understand that our medical health, when we engage in a consensual intimate act with someone, carries risk. And these topics that I'm talking about today are ripped from social media. They're ripped from Twitter or Facebook, FetLife, Fetish.com, places that the BDSM and lifestyle community permeate. And some of these topics surround, I want to protect myself. So if I'm going to engage, even in a one-night stand, this particular person was talking about, I require my partners to have a STI test. And that's a reasonable and fair and healthy way to approach your lifestyle. Because unfortunately, and as this person pointed out, our behaviors of what we do and how we carry ourselves through life and things we encounter can lead to health risk conditions. So we need to dive into this vital role of disclosure inside of our sexual encounters. Now, disclosure isn't just about sharing our information, right? We're not talking, for those in the United States, for example, we have this thing called HIPAA. This is something that protects our medical information, our sensitive medical information, from only being shared from one medical professional to another, right? That does not mean if you are the owner of that information, you can't share it with a potential partner. So if we're getting to know someone, even if we're out at a club, I've gone out on dates in my life where, they've led to one-night stands, but I have as much protection as we can use, condoms and, not lubricants, but the gels to stop potentially from somebody getting pregnant. But a lot of these things don't fully protect us from STIs, right? So is it okay? Do we, now in today's age, we, with our little handheld computers, can carry around our medical information, and if somebody requires it, look, I had my STI test 2 months ago. This is where I'm at. I'm healthy. Or, I have herpes or something else, right? So we are giving somebody the choice whether or not they want to engage with us, and we're not removing that choice from them. So we're talking about not violating their consent. It's about establishing trust and ensuring that everyone involved is informed. This then sets the stage for safe and consensual experiences, which is what our lifestyle, but more so intimate sexual encounters, are all about. So I really want to take a look at the ethics and these emotional dynamics and the practicalities of the critical aspect of responsible sexual behavior. Now, while sex with BDSM, and I've said this before, sex and BDSM are not synonymous. And people think this is controversial. It's not controversial. Just because I'm involved in a scene with somebody does not mean I'm going to have sex with them. We could just be doing an impact session or water torture or an interrogation scene. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have sex with them. But I don't want to stray. I want to kind of, segue into something else. So what is disclosure and why does it matter to us? All right? Because this tends to become the bigger point in what we're seeing and what we're dealing with and how we approach all of these things. Because a lot of the times I think when we're trying to understand things, we don't really understand the words that we're using. So disclosures in the context of sexual encounters goes beyond merely sharing personal information. It serves as a foundation for trust and consent. When we disclose our sexual health status and history, we give our potential partners the ability to make an informed decision about their own well-being. It's an ethical responsibility that transcends personal preferences. It's about creating an environment where consent is fully informed, leading to a healthier and safer interactions with somebody, right? Disclosure is more than just a formality as well. It's a fundamental component of ethical and consensual sexual behavior. It represents a commitment to openness and honesty in intimate relationships, ensuring that everyone involved has a complete picture of the potential risks and benefits. Now, there's nothing controversial about that. I can remember a time when there was somebody I met about 20 some odd years ago that, and I will admit I didn't know much about it at the time, who had herpes. And for me, it was a turnoff. Now, I was young, I wasn't very well informed, didn't know much about it, but did that preclude me from wanting to have sex with her? Yes, it did. And I didn't, and our relationship ended. Now, while some people might think, oh, well, that's really harsh to do, I was making a choice for myself. It didn't matter that I didn't know about breakouts and how these things worked. I didn't want to take a risk. So before the relationship proceeded any further, which it wasn't very long, I think it was only about a month or two in at this point, I chose to opt out. And that's my right to do. I shouldn't be lambasted just because I want to make a choice for myself for a virus that I can't get rid of, or I could potentially spread to somebody else. Yes, I know that medicine has come a long way. Not discussing that, right? We have to understand we each get our own decision when it comes to risk and benefits of our own health. Now, by disclosing our sexual health status and any relevant history, we respect the autonomy of the person we want to engage with, and giving them the information they need to make the choice that align with their own well-being. So, what's the ethics of sharing our STI status and our test results? Well, this ethical dimension of disclosure is paramount, especially when we talk about everything inside of the lifestyle and how much we should be open and sharing and build trust and communication and all of these things. When we withhold information about our sexual health, we compromise the autonomy of our partners and potentially expose them to risks they didn't consent to. Why? If we don't, then it's not about, oh, I'm worried and I'm going to be rejected, because this is the argument I've been starting to see. Well, I don't want to be alone, so I'm not going to tell you. Well, then you're being selfish, and sometimes in certain cases, and depending on the disease that somebody might be or infection they might be spreading, can be criminal behavior. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Now, I want to explore the moral implications of not sharing one's STI status and the test results, and discuss this crucial role ethics play in maintaining this respectful and responsible boundary inside of our sexual relationships. Now, ethics in sexual encounters extend beyond personal desires. They encompass the principles of respect empathy, responsibility, right? The things that people constantly seem to chatter about within the lifestyle community, that this is what they want. So by disclosing our STI status and test results, we create a transparent and ethical foundation for our relationships, ensuring that consent is fully informed and based on complete knowledge. It's a practice that not only safeguards the well-being of ourselves and our partners, but also reinforces trust and respect within intimate connections. I have seen plenty of profiles of people that I've interacted with through the years, or I've talked to over the years, or I've met out at events that have said this. I've got supporting partners. They know I'm, dealing with whatever privately, and that's wonderful. They're mitigating, and their partner had a choice to continue and engage. But they weren't tricked into engagement. And I'm going to get to that because that's an important aspect that's bringing up this topic today. So how do we approach this conversation? Now, initiating a conversation about our sexual health can be challenging, and it can feel daunting at times. We can even feel a little bit embarrassed, but the conversation that's truly essential for personal and collective well-being, right? We have to understand how to approach this conversation with our potential partners. Now, we have to set the right tone and use effective communication strategies. And I want to kind of talk about some ways we can navigate this delicate but very crucial dialogue inside of our relationships, especially since we are trying to ensure that everyone involved feels respected and informed. So, effective communication here is the linchpin of a successful disclosure. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. Setting a respectful and non-judgmental tone is really crucial. Start the conversation by expressing your commitment to transparency and respect for your partner and for yourself and their autonomy. You want to be able to use I statements to express your feelings and experiences. Create a safe space for your partner to ensure their thoughts and concerns. You need to actively listen. This is completely and equally as important. Give your partner the opportunity to ask questions, express their feelings, right? It's a dialogue, not a monologue. And mutual understanding is the goal. If they need time to process what you said, then you have to give them time to process what you've told them. Their personal health can potentially be at stake if they engage with you. Now, obviously, that's not the fault of somebody who's contracted something. I understand that. They're not pariahs inside of our community or inside of our global community at all. Right? But we can engage in these things, but what we have to do is give somebody. If we care for someone enough, or we've been with someone long enough and something happens, well, then we make a choice. And some people stay. Some things aren't, as controversial anymore as they once used to be when we didn't have a lot of understanding or knowledge. And that's really paramount here when we're talking about our sexual health and the things that are going on. And I don't like getting this to the point where we feel we need to hide something just because we're going to be alone, because there's a lot of discussion that I've read, even in places like Reddit, where the subculture I'm about to talk about, this very controversial phenomenon, kind of permeates. But it's not just within one community anymore. It's spreading. So, what am I talking about? So this is known as bug chasing. So what is the controversial phenomenon of bug chasing? This practice, which involves individuals intentionally seeking out to contract STIs, HIV in some cases, and in some of the most radical cases, AIDS. And it completely challenges societal norms and raises a significant concern within our communities. Right? To foster awareness and promote safer choices, we have to understand the motivations behind this. And from what I've read, and obviously in the medical world and definitely in the psychological world, that the intricate psychology that underpins this, the far-reaching public health implications, they have come out and have started talking about this under risky sexual deviant behavior or unhealthy, risky sexual practices, which are looking to be classified or are classified under some other paraphilias. So, is this a mental health impact? I don't know, because, as new as the phenomenon is coming around, or is at least coming to light, the discussion is going to start being raised. I can tell you from what I've read thus far, from the NIH, Mayo Clinic, medical agencies in Europe, it's a very disturbing practice. Because consequently, what ultimately is happening, before I get into all that, let me go ahead and keep explaining and understanding what this is. So, bug chasing is this perplexing phenomenon that demands a lot more attention, I believe, like I said before, but maybe a bigger understanding. Now, some individuals actively seek to contract STIs, and I'm going to get into the reasons behind this behavior. By exploring these motivations that drive people towards this bug chasing, I think the researchers are trying to gain an insight into the complexities of the human desires and the emotions that drive it, maybe how to treat the behavior, and ultimately, I don't know, try to thwart this controversial practice depending on who you are. Obviously everybody does some things, but I mean, as one person tried to say, we're shaming you for a kink. Well, you know what? If you believed in cannibalism, in my personal opinion, and that's what you wanted to do, which actually happened in Europe, that was criminal. If you're wanting to engage in a sexual practice that you're spreading a communicable disease, which in some places in the world, I definitely know some states in the United States, it's a felony practice to want to spread something like HIV or AIDS. It doesn't matter now that HIV can be treated. If you're not telling somebody, or if you're actively, because this is your fetish, seeking this out, and then you actively pass it to somebody else, somehow their life is radically altered from that moment forward, all for selfish motivations. Now, understanding bug chasing begins with acknowledging that it sits in the range of very complex, deviant sexual human desire. And this is not me saying this. This is NIH, different psychological journals, psychological sexual health, a very wide array as I've started looking into the subject. Now, the individuals may be driven by a variety of factors, and some may see this as a form of weird self-expression. And I'm saying weird because I can't actively understand why somebody would want to seek out somebody who is infected or may want to infect somebody else. But I am going to get to that, right? Another reason why somebody may want to do this is they're challenging societal norms or even means of seeking connection with a community. Now, looking at these diverse motivations behind this, and that is by no means the end of the list of why people do this, it gives us an opportunity to be better equipped to approach this topic. Now, a lot of people think I need to approach this with empathy, but I tend not to be, because this is an upsetting practice. This practice initially started within the gay community. Some say, some of the research points to people looking for attention. So if they want to be more in sync with a partner that might be struggling with something like HIV. So they really want to keep the relationship going. One case of two reporting individuals shared similar stories in some research I found, where they said their partners who were positive with, either an extreme STI that was untreatable and one, I think, had HIV, their partners just wanted to end the relationship, and the bug chasers, so the negative person in this particular instance, or negative people, didn't want to lose the relationship, so were willing to be infected just to stay inside of the relationship. So we're now getting into very deep-rooted, separation type anxiety disorders, different attachment disorders here. And it's hard for me to really want to understand why you're risking your health intentionally. There are other ways, but I don't, that's not part of this that I want to go into. And how do we even look at the underlying needs and desires that contribute to this type of behavior? It becomes a whole nother psychological show that goes well beyond my depth. Now, from what I've read about some of the psychology behind the bug chasing, it's intriguing and it's deep and it's got a lot of tiers to it. The factors that can contribute to this behavior seem to be all over the place, from self-esteem issues to a desire for belonging and acceptance, understanding that they may seek attention and have always felt invalidated throughout their life, but now if they have something that people will be, showing them attention and love and care, but it's unfortunately for all of the wrong issues. And looking at these underlying motivations maybe paints a bigger and more comprehensive picture of bug chasing and its impact on those who engage in it. Now, exploring the psychology of bug chasing reveals this interplay of emotions and desires and self-perceptions. For some people, it can be linked to feelings of low self-esteem, where seeking this infection serves as a form of punishment, right? Self-flagellation from an internal attack on their own immune system. Others may find a sense of belonging and identity within the bug chasing community, which can be particularly powerful for those who feel marginalized or stigmatized in other areas of their lives. But what I don't seem to understand is, if you're feeling marginalized, why would you want to seek out others who, if you're not infected, if you're, negative, you're seeking out? My problem with this behavior, so now it's grown, this phenomenon has grown to the bisexual or even heterosexual community. And we're now talking about actively spreading diseases we want to contain. Now, we live in a world where everybody freaked out about a flu, and we got shots, and, I've had to be vaccinated because of my work, and mask mandates and all of these things, but we're going to somehow want to identify this as some sort of healthy sexual practice. It's not. It's not at all. It's a sexually deviant paraphilia that has, in some cases, serious health implications and can, in some instances, take somebody's life, or at least accelerate the end of their life. So why am I mentioning this? Because there's public health risks and there's these consequences. And bug chasing isn't merely just your individual choice. It carries a significant public health risk. And these consequences for the individuals and the broader community is keeping a disease that we could try to contain at bay. However, this is openly and willingly wanting to perpetuate it and keep it growing inside of our global society. Now, am I trying to be alarmist here? No, because this phenomenon has been around a while now. And should we, are the health implications enough that it needs more attention? Yes, I would believe so. But I'm looking at bug chasing as a matter of concern that requires our attention, and thoughtful discussion is what this is about. I personally don't think this is a healthy psychological sexual practice. There are other reasons, and I'm not going to go into every one here. I just don't have the time. Please, for yourself, you can look into this and see the research that's out there. You can see the acknowledgments that they're out there. Even in some of the kink websites, they talk about the unsafe health practice that it is, and the damage that it can cause. It leaves a little bit, someone wanting for more information. But the consequences of bug chasing extend beyond the individual. It poses a serious risk to public health, and the individuals intentionally contracting an STI can unknowingly become a vector for transmission within communities. Didn't we hear this same type of thing when we were telling unvaccinated people, you're going to be a spreader of COVID, right? I am going to kind of make a link here because it's the most recent thing that we have dealt with. But AIDS and HIV over the last 20, 30 years have killed far more people. Globally, far more people. And as we get these things under control, why isn't something like this? Why are we trying to say this is a risky sexual or this is a healthy sexual practice within inside of the lifestyle or BDSM community? This not only threatens the well-being of those engaged in the bug-chasing practice, but it jeopardizes the health of others who may be exposed to these or their infections. And by understanding this, by looking at the public health risk, we highlight an urgency here to address this practice, sure, maybe with some sensitivity and a focus on some education for these people and prevention. But I realize it's not a, a simple problem with an easy solution. It's complex. That requires a lot of approach and research and understanding to mitigate the potential harm. And what I don't seem to understand is the people who are seeking inside of this behavior then attack others who don't want anything to do with this as somehow these people are bigots, which I have recently seen. I've watched some people say these types of things. So how do differing opinions on sexual health practices create such division within the lifestyle community? I don't know. I don't seem to understand. I thought one thing we could all agree on is having safe, sane, and consensual practices. This completely negates SSC with inside of the BDSM community altogether. These divisions extend beyond our individual choices. They impact the collective well-being and dynamics of our entire community. They have effects on our dynamics, strategies to promote unity and mutual respect, diversity, right? And the emotional and mental health challenges that these divisions create are long-lasting. Are these people too? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying just because you have an STI that you can't participate within the community, but you have to be able to make that well known, especially in some of our practices that involve fluid exchange, plays with blood, or any other bodily fluid that could potentially infect somebody else. Your desire to be involved with somebody does not trump their right for their bodily autonomy. Sounds familiar. I'm pretty sure that this has been kind of going around for a while, but for some reason these people inside of this small group believe otherwise. Now, we often encounter a lot of scenarios within our community where individuals holding conflicting views on sexual health practices differ, and that's fine because we're all going to have different views because we were raised in different places with different religions or cultures and how we view the world. And these opinions can range from the use of protection to disclosure practices, right? We underscore the importance of recognizing and addressing these divides because they bring us together and talk about things. One thing we can't do is shun people because they want to protect their own health. That's almost antithetical to the whole point of consent. And it's asinine to me. How could somebody be so full of self-grandeur to think that they don't have to share anything about their life of potentially a risky infection or disease with someone they're going to engage with that may choose not to engage with you once they found that information out? Your desire to be alone or your desire not to be alone doesn't trump someone else's health. And I'm never not going to start saying that. You're not going to change my mind on that. You're not going to change the medical establishment's mind on that. You're probably not going to change the psychological community's mind on that. It doesn't mean people are going to be alone. I know a lot of people who have partners that or are married, both heterosexual and homosexual, that have partners with STIs, AIDS, or HIV. They didn't leave. They've stayed. But they got consent. They were informed. They assessed the risk and they moved forward. But at their free choice, at their free will, not because they were coerced into it. And that's where I tend to find the problem is because if we're not disclosing this and somebody's asking you if I was in the dating scene now and with modern tech, if a young woman say, hey, we're not having sex, so you show me. Okay, well, here's my phone, here's my recent health test, or okay, won't be tonight, obviously I got to go get tested, but yeah, let's do this. And we go and get tested and then we move forward. Why is that such a problem? It doesn't make it any worse because you're not getting sex in the moment. Oh, okay, well, might be a little frustrated. You might go home a little bit horny. Well, then you go home and masturbate for that night or two or three. When you're clear and they see you're clear and they're clear, how about that working both ways? Then you can go at it. You can screw like monkeys, right? And, if you want to go bareback and that's what you want to do, great. Then you've lowered your risk profile. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not contracting something, but at least you know that at the current moment you have no STIs. So how does all of this impact our community dynamics? Well, that unfolded more so today. And dissenting opinions in the lifestyle community, especially in the BDSM forums, can influence the cohesion and harmony of these spaces that we inhabit, especially all of us together. I am at awe when I read some of these discussions where people are talking about and they're pro for their health, and there's others that are claiming that they work in the medical community, that they're even testing for STIs, and people don't have enough knowledge, but then they're lambasting people because they're requesting that information. So we need to kind of start moving to a different point. So where does this point leave us? So the impact of these dissenting opinions on inside of our community, especially within the dynamics that are interwoven, can't be underestimated. These divisions can lead, well, as I saw, to a lot of tension, exclusion, and the sense of isolation within the communities themselves. But who is placing themselves in that position? You feel like you have a right on one side of this argument not to disclose your status. Well, on the other side, then that other person has an equal right not to engage in any sexual type behavior with you. And it's important to recognize that that individuals within our community, we come from different backgrounds and have varying experiences, which all contribute to our extremely unique perspectives on the lifestyle. And while we want to create an environment where different opinions are respected and open dialogue is encouraged, you can't tell people they're wrong just because, and I'm surprised I have to say this, that they're wrong for wanting an STI test before they engage. I know women who participate in, gangbangs, for example. One status requirement for that is an STI test prior to it. They don't want to catch something. Not only do they not want to catch something, they don't want to spread anything. So how do we get to the point where we create more of an understanding and open dialogue? Well, when I look at strategies, I aim to facilitate healthy discourse between people, encourage constructive dialogue. That's, there's no ad hominems. We're not calling people names. We're not just calling them racist and bigots, right? The point is to build a bridge among individuals with different opinions and explain your opinion. But then while you're defending your opinion, at least understand somebody else's. It's a very proactive approach, especially within our community itself, where we keep claiming we want to be inclusive and respectful and supportive of diverse perspectives. But I find this perspective of wanting to spread or contract a communicable disease that may or may not be able to be cured, let alone has to be mitigated, or worse, healthy. And I'm not gonna, I don't think I'm gonna find too many people who are gonna disagree with me except this small, diverse population. And if you want to involve yourself in this, which is a very risky sexual health paraphilia, that's your choice. I'm not going to stop you. I am going to, though, consider if I want to keep an association with you, because I'm not willing to risk my health or my practices or my future or my life or anything I'm doing or anybody else I come into contact because of the choices you're making. If that's a problem for people who don't understand that, then they have to do the hard work for themselves. They're going to have to understand that the community or people in general that they want to get involved with that maybe aren't part of this paraphilia don't want to contract a disease or contract an infection that they have to mitigate for the rest of their lives or potentially be a death sentence because you just feel you need to be part of something. It doesn't work that way. You can't remove somebody else's personal autonomy. And for me, this would, as we go into more into my area, there's mental health implications here. And I want to look at that now. And these topics are massive. The decisions we make in our intimate lives have profound emotional consequences. And it's vital to understand that harm, real harm, can result from non-disclosure and bug chasing. And just because you don't feel like you want to tell somebody you're involved in this, well, then they have the right not to get involved with you. But I would never want to get involved with somebody who is willingly carrying something, passes it to me, and that will wreck the rest of my life. That can lead to depression, anxiety, stress, suicidal thoughts, and other implications. It's out there. The research is out there. And this is a severe emotional toll. It takes a massive psychological strain. And we no longer feel a part of something because that part of us was stripped away. So what kind of emotional toll is carried with non-disclosure? Well, if an individual fails to disclose this pertinent medical information that will willingly put others at risk, the emotional effect is going to be profound. And those affected may experience feelings of betrayal, anger, massive sense of violation, depression. And I want to look more at this emotional impact on those who find themselves in these situations where disclosure was lacking, shedding the light on this lasting scars this can leave. Because like when I work with sexual assault survivors, there was a lasting emotional effect, psychological effect on people moving forward with the rest of their lives. Right? And we all understand that. We're all supportive of that. I don't support bug chasing. I'm going to be very, very clear about that. And now, when we look at non-disclosure in intimate relationships, this can lead to significant emotional distress, and it erodes trust. All of the things that people, when they're inside of this community, I'm talking the lifestyle community, say that they abide by. You're literally violating every tenet that all the rest of us, hold most crucial. It's the bedrock of a healthy connection. Trust. The betrayal of trust can result in profound feelings of hurt and vulnerability. It leads to long-term emotional consequences. Looking at these emotional dynamics, I get a deeper understanding of the importance of responsibility, disclosure, and the role of safeguarding both physical and emotional well-being for people. I just don't understand why you really want to involve others. I'm not involved in every type of kink on the planet because it doesn't suit me. To me, this isn't a kink. Bug chasing isn't a kink. And for individuals engaged in bug chasing, the psychological strain has got to be immense. And I'll agree, it's a complex phenomenon that's driven by a mix of desires and fears and unmet emotional needs, then you need to speak with somebody about that. And looking and shedding light at this and on the challenges that someone may be facing or the potential harm to their well-being or the well-being of others is completely crucial to why I'm doing this today. Now, bug chasing it's got to come with, and from everything I've read, it comes with this massive complexity of psychological ramifications. Those who are actively seeking to contract an STI have to be grappling with a range of emotions, self-esteem issues, self-destructive behavior tendencies, more so the pursuit of acceptance within a unique community so you can stand out and garner attention. This small list screams attention or behavioral issues. And the psychological strain has to be extremely complex. And looking at these emotional factors, yeah, maybe it's essential for fostering empathy and offering support by those affected, but because not enough is known and too many in the medical establishment are completely against this, I can't see. I'm sure there's probably there are specialists out there that work in psychological sexual health that can help people maybe mitigate this through cognitive behavioral therapy. Because that's what we're talking about, is changing someone's behavior. So I'm lost, and you're hearing me stutter on the words or slow my speech. The reality is that I'm trying to understand a world where you'd want to physically infect yourself with something or infect somebody else and then somehow have the right to defend that. There isn't a defense here. And I'm willing to engage in a discourse, maybe to understand and grow, why. But I can't see any argument that's defensible for doing this type of behavior. I'm not saying that if somebody caught something, like, you meet somebody and I'll use somebody famous. I know Jessica Alba claims she contracted herpes by a baseball player. I can't remember who. And she's married now and has a family. Now, she met somebody who cared for her, looked past all of that, and made a choice to move forward. Yes, I know that the outbreaks and all of these things. I'm not talking about the medical complexity. That person still made a choice for their future health. Relationships end sometimes. Marriages end sometimes. And willing to risk yourself after that, then you have that stigma now with you. But when we have all of these massive divergence of opinions on sexual health practices, we start to take a stance where it's us against them. It's my choice. I can do what I want. Well, you're right, but there are consequences for your actions. And if you're feeling isolated because no one wants to participate with you because you don't want to disclose your medical status or your health status with somebody who's at first willing to engage, or you're feeling judged, or you're starting to sense, engage in feelings of inadequacy due to differing views within the community, who do you think the problem might be with? And we have to really look at that. We have to understand that in our community, we have a responsibility personally. I'm not going to trust is established over time, but that is a question for every partner I've ever had. What is your medical health status? If we are going to engage, here is my medical health stuff. Here is my recent health and blood tests and all of these things, so you can make a choice for yourself. And then I get to see theirs. If they're like, great, thanks, cool, let's go have sex. I'm like, well, wait a minute, where's yours? I'm not willing to risk my life for anybody. I don't care how great. Nobody's private parts are gilded, and they're not platinum, right? I don't care how good the sex is going to be. I'm not willing to risk my life just to have sex with somebody. It's your choice if you do. but then there's consequences for those actions. And that becomes the issue. And then we have all of these differing opinions in the lifestyle, but I see more people in favor of disclosing this type of information to each other. And I think that's responsible. That's what we talk about. That's consensual. Or it should be a consensual act between the two people to disclose that information and to carry it. I saw that one argument was, well, we're disclosing personal medical information. That's a violation. And, I won't even go further because they started and go say, oh, it's a violation of HIPAA. It's not a violation of HIPAA. HIPAA doesn't apply because if you're disclosing your personal information to a person you want to engage with in a sexual manner, that's your right to do so. It doesn't even personally matter if that person's a medical professional you want to have sex with in the first place. They're not going to be treating you. They want to have sex with you. They just want to make sure that if they're going to have sex with you, that you're going to be okay. The other argument came in with, oh, well, condoms. Well, condoms aren't completely effective. That's been proven. They break. They don't stop everything. All of these discussions about anybody else's bodily autonomy ends with when you say, well, you don't get a right to somebody else's bodily autonomy. And if you refuse to tell them, they have the right to say no. Don't like it. That's on you. That's just the way that works. I know this is a little bit different than what I normally do. And it's important for me to sometimes reflect on these really complex and sometimes controversial topics that hit us in the lifestyle, especially when they permeate. And part of the show was looking at stuff that goes through our lifestyle. And it goes through social media, and it's what people are actively talking about. And from this crucial point of disclosure of our sexual encounters to this complex, enigmatic, controversial phenomenon of bug chasing, or the dynamics of differing opinions within our communities and the implications this all brings, I realize, we have a very diverse, growing universe inside of the lifestyle community. Because this landscape is made up of human desires and sexual proclivities and erotic fantasies, choices, and how those choices impact our lives. And it's important for us to acknowledge that within our communities, differing opinions are always going to exist. And it's healthy to engage in constructive dialogue and debate. But when these differences border on practices that can harm the greater community or society in general, it becomes imperative to reevaluate the choices and priorities that we have. And responsible disclosure and ethical sexual practices serve as pillars of trust and respect within the lifestyle and BDSM community. And they shouldn't be compromised, not for you or not for anybody else. And I don't even understand why I have to say that. But I am, and I'm finding myself kind of in awe that, I'm sitting here looking out at the beautiful water and mountains, talking about this. And bug chasing is this practice that, sure, great, it's challenging societal norms and public health, and it demands a lot more attention. And while it's more than likely, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen and what I'm reading on these complex, deviant sexual behaviors and desires, our choices, or the choices of those people who involved in that practice, those come with consequences. And they don't just come for consequences with the people that they're involved with or themselves, but for everyone around them, their families and everybody else, and the toll, the emotional strain, financial strain it's going to take on somebody. Let alone the potential harm to the public health can't be ignored. And responsible choices should always take precedence. They shouldn't be ignored. Not for you, not for anyone. And if you're going to be engaged in that, you're going to probably find me not in your corner. And I don't think a lot of people are, and that's okay. Because I'm not always going to agree. Not everybody's going to agree with me on subjects, and that's fine. I'm not going to agree with everybody else on every subject, and that's okay. Navigating these different opinions within our communities, typically I want to say I approach it with empathy, an open dialogue, and commitment to more understanding. Some subjects, though, I'm lost in. I understand the depth of the human mind or desires for a propensity to do something to cause harm. Because what we're saying, and when we talk about the lifestyle community, I mentioned it before, we're not in a role where we are wanting to cause harm to somebody else. We want to hurt, which is consensually done and enjoyable. We stop when we cause harm. These people, in my opinion, aren't stopping. They're perpetuating harm. And one thing about our community is we have great diverse perspectives, and inside of that, it's the strength from that, but it should never come at the cost of you wanting to sacrifice our health or anyone's health so you don't feel alienated or judged or emotionally distressed. You can be honest, and eventually you'll probably meet somebody who's willing to deal with those things. And maybe it's not the person you think you deserve, but it's probably the person that you should be with. Someone who is willing to look past or work through those issues with somebody. But if you're going to take a bridge and you want me to make a space for you inside of a discussion, and your discussion is, oh, this is my life and this is what I'm going to do, well, then don't expect that bridge to stay standing for very long. And it's my right not to keep engaging with people like that. So as I kind of wind this down today, I want to leave you with this thought. Our choices in the realm of kink and sexual expression can be very deeply personal. But they're not made in isolation. They have the power to influence not only our own lives, but the lives of those whom we share our desires and experiences. We have to remember the importance of responsibility, consent, respect, and not bringing harm in the journey through the world of kink and BDSM. Until next time, everybody, be safe and stay kinky.